November 10, 1918, 0400 hours, approximately 30 minutes before dawn, near the village of Ville-sur-Haine, Belgium. Private Henry Tandey of the 5th Battalion, Duke of Wellington's regiment, lay in a hastily dug rifle pit, watching the darkness across no man's land. The war was ending. Everyone knew it. The armistice would be signed tomorrow, ending 4 years of slaughter. But tonight the Germans were launching one final attack, one last desperate attempt to capture strategic positions before peace froze the front lines permanently. Tandey checked his rifle for perhaps the 100th time that night. The short Magazine Lee-Enfield Mark III, the SMLE. British soldiers called it the SMLE. Some loved it, some hated it. Tandey worshipped it. The rifle in his hands wasn't standard issue anymore. It was a Mark III, the older model. Most British soldiers now carried the Mark III Star, a simplified wartime variant. But Tandey had kept his original SMLE through 3 years of combat, maintaining it obsessively, knowing its quirks, understanding its capabilities at gut level. His mates had mocked him for it. Why carry that old thing when you could get a newer rifle? Why spend hours cleaning and maintaining a weapon most troops considered obsolete? The Americans arriving in France with their Springfield rifles had been particularly dismissive. That British mail-order rifle, one doughboy had called it, sneering at the SMLE's appearance. Tandey hadn't bothered arguing. He'd learned long ago that weapons proved themselves in combat, not in barracks conversations. And this rifle, this specific SMLE with its worn stock and carefully adjusted sights, had saved his life more times than he could count. Through the darkness, he heard movement. Germans, lots of them. This wasn't a patrol or a raid. This was an assault, possibly battalion strength. They were coming in the pre-dawn darkness, hoping to achieve surprise, hoping to overwhelm British positions before defenders could react effectively. Tandey's battalion was undermanned. 4 years of war had reduced it to less than half strength. The men were exhausted. Many had been wounded multiple times. They were holding a defensive line stretched too thin. Waiting for an armistice they'd been promised was imminent. Now, in the last hours before peace, the Germans were attacking, and Private Tandey, with his mocked SMLE, was about to demonstrate why the British Army had equipped its infantry with this specific rifle. Why the design, refined over decades, had created what many considered the finest bolt-action battle rifle ever made. What happened in the next 45 minutes would become legendary. Tandey would fire approximately 120 rounds. He would kill at least 14 Germans, possibly more. He would break up an attack that threatened to overrun his entire company. And he would do it with a rifle American troops had dismissed as a mail-order weapon from an outdated empire. The mathematics of survival were about to be written in a .303 caliber. The SMLE, designed for rapid fire in the hands of trained riflemen, was about to prove that rate of fire mattered more than any other specification. That British insistence on 10-round magazines and smooth bolt operation wasn't outdated thinking, but tactical genius, the design philosophy. Speed over everything. To understand why Tandey's SMLE was so effective, we need to examine the rifle's design philosophy. The British Army, unlike most military forces, prioritized rate of fire above almost all other considerations. This decision, controversial when made, would prove decisive in 2 world wars. The SMLE was adopted in 1903, replacing the longer magazine Lee-Enfield. The new rifle was shorter, handier, and optimized for rapid fire. Its 10-round magazine held twice as many rounds as the German Mausers' 5-round magazine, and significantly more than the American Springfield's 5 rounds. But magazine capacity alone didn't make the SMLE special. What made it revolutionary was the bolt design. The SMLE's bolt throw was only 60 degrees compared to 90 degrees for the Mauser and Springfield. This shorter throw meant faster cycling. A trained rifleman could fire 20 to 30 aimed shots per minute with the SMLE. The Mauser or Springfield might manage 12 to 15. British Army training emphasized rapid fire. Recruits spent hundreds of hours practicing what was called the mad minute, firing as many aim shots as possible in 60 seconds. The best riflemen could achieve 35 rounds per minute. Average soldiers managed 25. Even poor shots could maintain 20 rounds per minute. This emphasis on volume of fire reflected British military experience. In colonial campaigns, British forces often faced numerically superior enemies. Rapid rifle fire, delivered by disciplined infantry, could create the effect of machine gun fire without the weight and complexity of actual machine guns. The SMLE's rear-locking lugs, controversial among engineers who preferred the Mauser's front-locking lugs, actually contributed to rapid fire capability. The rear lugs allowed a smoother bolt action with less friction. Shooters could cycle the bolt faster without fighting tight tolerances. The cock-on-closing mechanism meant the firing pin was cocked as the bolt closed rather than as it opened. This distributed the effort of working the bolt more evenly, reducing fatigue during sustained fire. Soldiers could maintain high rates of fire longer without exhaustion. The magazine cutoff, allowing single rounds to be loaded while keeping the magazine in reserve, gave riflemen flexibility. They could fire slowly and deliberately when appropriate, then switch to rapid fire from the magazine when necessary. This tactical flexibility was unique to the SMLE among military rifles of the era. Critics, particularly in Germany and America, considered the British emphasis on rapid fire outdated. Modern rifles should be accurate at long range, they argued. Rate of fire was less important than precision. The Mauser's stronger action and more robust design were superior to the SMLE's speed-oriented compromises. These critics were wrong. In the combat conditions that actually occurred, rapid fire proved far more valuable than theoretical accuracy at extreme ranges. Most combat happened at 300 yards or less. At these ranges, putting more rounds downrange faster mattered more than perfect accuracy at 1,000 yards. Henry Tandey, the unlikely hero. Henry Tandey was born August 30, 1891, in Leamington Spa, Warwickshire. His childhood was difficult. His father died when Henry was young. His mother struggled to support the family. At age 14, Tandey left school to work as a hotel porter, contributing his wages to household expenses. In 1910, at age 19, Tandey enlisted in the British Army. He joined the Green Howards, a Yorkshire regiment with a distinguished history. Army life suited him. He was disciplined, took orders well, and discovered he had natural ability with rifles. During recruit training, Tandey excelled at marksmanship. His instructors noted he had steady hands, good eyes, and the patience necessary for effective shooting. He qualified as a marksman, a designation requiring consistent accuracy at various ranges, but Tandey's real talent was rapid fire. During mad-minute drills, he consistently hit 30 rounds per minute on target. This placed him in the top 10% of British infantry. His ability to maintain accuracy while cycling the bolt at maximum speed marked him as exceptional. In 1914, when war began, Tandey was a trained soldier with 4 years' service. He deployed to France with his regiment in August. Over the next 4 years, he would become one of the British Army's most decorated soldiers, earning the Distinguished Conduct Medal, the Military Medal, and ultimately the Victoria Cross. Tandey's decorations weren't for single acts of spectacular heroism. They were for consistent, reliable effectiveness in combat. He was the soldier commanders wanted in defensive positions, the man who could be counted on to hold his ground, deliver accurate fire, and inspire others through his example. His weapon of choice was always the SMLE. He'd been issued his first Mark III in 1911 during training. That rifle, or ones very similar, had been his constant companion through the war. He knew the SMLE's capabilities intimately. He understood that in skilled hands, it was the finest battle rifle in the world. By November 1918, Tandey was a veteran of the Somme, Ypres, Passchendaele, and countless smaller actions. He'd been wounded 5 times. He'd seen most of his original battalion killed or invalided out. He'd survived 4 years when average life expectancy for frontline infantry was measured in months. He'd survived largely because of his rifle skills. His ability to deliver rapid, accurate fire had saved his life and the lives of his comrades repeatedly. When Germans attacked, Tandey's rifle spoke with authority. When positions needed holding, Tandey held them. When soldiers needed inspiration, Tandey's calm competence provided it. The Americans who'd mocked his SMLE as a mail-order rifle didn't understand what they were seeing. Tandey's rifle was worn, yes. The stock was dinged and scratched from years of hard use. The bluing was worn in places. But the bore was immaculate. The action was smooth as silk. The sights were perfectly adjusted. Every part was maintained to perfection. This rifle wasn't obsolete. It was refined. Every component had been tested in combat and proven. Every design feature had justified itself through 4 years of the most intense warfare in human history. The SMLE had killed more enemy soldiers than perhaps any other rifle in World War I. And in Tandey's hands, it was about to prove its worth, one final time. The night before the end, November 9th, 1918, evening. The 5th Battalion, Duke of Wellington's regiment, occupied positions near Ville-sur-Haine. They'd been told the war was ending. Armistice negotiations were concluded. The shooting would stop on November 11th at 11 a.m. The men's mood was cautiously optimistic. They'd survived. After 4 years of horror, they'd made it to the end. Just 2 more days, just 48 more hours. Don't do anything stupid. Don't take unnecessary risks. Survive until the ceasefire. But intelligence reports were concerning. German units in their sector weren't standing down. They were repositioning, moving forward, concentrating forces. Either they didn't know about the armistice, or they were planning something despite it. Battalion command issued warnings. Expect attacks. The Germans might try to capture territory before the ceasefire makes current positions permanent. Be alert. Be ready. Don't assume the war is over just because politicians have agreed it should be. Tandey's company was assigned to hold a stretch of front-line trench and several forward rifle pits. The position was weak. Too few men covering too much ground. If the Germans attacked in force, the position might not hold. But relief wasn't coming. Every unit was at minimal strength. Everyone was exhausted. Everyone was just trying to survive 2 more days. Tandey volunteered for forward rifle pit duty. This was typical of him. Take the most dangerous positions. Lead by example. His sergeant, who'd served with Tandey for 3 years, didn't try to talk him out of it. Tandey in a rifle pit was worth 3 ordinary soldiers. If Germans came, that rifle pit would hold. Tandey took his SMLE, 4 bandoliers of ammunition totaling 120 rounds, his bayonet, and a few personal items. He settled into the rifle pit just after midnight. 2 other soldiers were with him, Private James Williamson, age 19, on his first tour at the front, and Private Thomas Burke, a veteran like Tandey. They waited in the darkness. The night was cold. Frost formed on the ground. Tandey checked his rifle, worked the bolt several times to ensure it cycled smoothly in the cold, and verified his ammunition. The .303 rounds were in 5-round chargers, ready to load quickly into the magazine. Around 0300 hours, they heard movement. Germans, moving cautiously, but in large numbers. This wasn't a patrol. This was an attack forming up. Tandey estimated at least a battalion, possibly more. They were gathering in the darkness, preparing to assault at dawn. Tandey sent Burke back to the main line with warning, German attack imminent, heavy force. Burke crawled away through the darkness. Tandey and Williamson waited. They couldn't fall back without orders. Their job was to hold the rifle pit, observe, and delay any attack. As dawn approached, Tandey could see German infantry gathering about 300 yards away. They were in a depression, partially concealed but visible to observers who knew where to look. He counted at least 2 companies, possibly 3, maybe 400 men, preparing to attack positions held by fewer than 100 British soldiers. The Germans were confident. They outnumbered the British 4-1. They had surprise. They had momentum. They expected to sweep over the British positions quickly, capture ground, and consolidate before the Armistice froze the lines. One last victory before peace. They didn't know about Henry Tandey. They didn't know about the SMLE. They didn't know they were about to encounter the British Army's rapid-fire doctrine at its most lethal. 04:15. The storm breaks. The German attack began with a brief artillery barrage, just a few minutes of shelling to suppress British positions. Then the infantry advanced, 400 German soldiers moving forward in the pre-dawn darkness, expecting to overwhelm fewer than 100 defenders. Tandey waited. The Germans were at 400 yards, 350 yards, 300 yards. He could see them clearly now in the growing light. Officers leading, soldiers advancing in tactical bounds, professional, experienced troops executing a well-planned attack. At 250 yards, Tandey opened fire. His first shot hit a German officer in the chest. The officer fell. Tandey's bolt was already cycling. Second shot. Another German down. Third shot. Fourth shot. The SMLE's 10-round magazine allowed him to fire 10 times. Without reloading, every shot was aimed. Every shot hit. The German advance faltered. Soldiers dove for cover, trying to identify where the devastating fire was coming from. One rifle pit shouldn't be able to generate this volume of fire. They expected 1 or 2 shots, then time to advance while the British reloaded. Instead, they were facing continuous fire. Tandey's first magazine was empty. He reloaded using a 5-round charger. The reload took perhaps 3 seconds. Thumb the charger into the magazine. Press down. The round stripped into the magazine. Pull out the empty charger. Close the bolt. Resume firing. He fired the next 5 rounds in perhaps 15 seconds. 5 more Germans fell. He reloaded again. Another charger. Another 5 rounds. The Germans were trying to advance, but the fire was too intense. Men were falling. Officers were down. The attack was losing cohesion. Private Williamson was also firing, though not as rapidly or accurately as Tandey. His contribution was nevertheless significant. 2 rifles delivering rapid fire created the impression of a much larger force. The Germans tried to flank the position. A squad moved to the right, trying to get around the rifle pit. Tandey tracked them with his rifle. 6 shots, 4 hits. The flanking attempt collapsed. Survivors retreated to cover. By 04:30, 15 minutes after the attack began, Tandey had fired approximately 40 rounds. He'd hit at least 10 Germans, possibly more. The German attack was stalled. Officers were trying to reorganize their men, figure out what they were facing, develop a new plan. Tandey used the pause to assess his situation. He'd used 3 bandoliers. He had 1 remaining 30 rounds. That would have to be enough. He couldn't fall back. His orders were to hold the position. Besides, falling back now would allow the Germans to advance unopposed. The Germans tried again, this time with more caution. They advanced by squads, using cover, trying to present fewer targets. But caution meant slower movement. Slower movement gave Tandey more time to aim and fire. He picked his targets carefully now, conserving ammunition. Officers first, then squad leaders, then soldiers who seemed competent and dangerous. Each shot was deliberate. Each shot mattered. The SMLE's accuracy at 300 yards was excellent. In Tandey's hands it was devastating. By 0500 the sun was rising. Tandey could see the battlefield clearly. Bodies dotted no man's land. German soldiers were taking cover anywhere they could find it. The attack had completely stalled. Then British reinforcements arrived. A platoon, about 30 men, reached the rifle pit. The company commander had recognized the threat and sent every available soldier forward. With support, Tandey's position was now defensible. The Germans, seeing British reinforcements and having lost heavily, withdrew. The attack was over. They'd suffered approximately 50 casualties, most from rifle fire. Tandey's contribution was impossible to quantify precisely, but his company commander estimated at least 14 Germans killed or severely wounded by fire from the rifle pit before reinforcements arrived. 14 confirmed kills. Possibly more in 45 minutes of combat, with a rifle American soldiers had mocked as a British mail-order weapon, the Mad Minute. Why it mattered to understand Tandey's achievement, we need to examine the British Army's Mad Minute doctrine in detail. This training regimen, developed in the early 1900s, emphasized rapid, accurate fire as the primary skill for infantry soldiers. The basic drill was simple. At a target 200 yards away, fire as many aimed shots as possible in 60 seconds. Minimum passing standard was 15 hits. Good soldiers achieved 20 hits. Excellent soldiers achieved 25 or more. Elite marksmen could achieve 30 or more. This drill developed muscle memory for rapid bolt manipulation. Soldiers learned to cycle the action smoothly while maintaining sight picture. They learned to control breathing and trigger press even while working the bolt at maximum speed. They learned to reload quickly using chargers without taking their eyes off the target. The SMLE's design enabled these high rates of fire. The smooth bolt action with short throw allowed rapid cycling. The 10-round magazine allowed extended firing before reloading. The charger loading system allowed fast magazine replenishment. Every design feature supported rapid fire. Critics argued this training was outdated. Modern infantry combat required accurate long-range fire, not volume fire, at close range. The German army, training its soldiers for precision at extended ranges, seemed to validate this approach. German soldiers were excellent marksmen at 600 to 800 yards. But World War I combat proved the British right. Most infantry engagements occurred at 300 yards or less. At these ranges, the British rapid-fire doctrine was devastating. German attacks that should have succeeded were stopped by the sheer volume of accurate fire British infantry delivered. German soldiers who survived attacks against British positions consistently reported the same experience. The British fire was like machine guns, continuous, accurate, overwhelming. How could infantry deliver such fire? Where were the machine guns? There were no machine guns. There were just British soldiers with SMLE rifles executing the Mad Minute doctrine under combat conditions. 15 to 25 aimed shots per minute from each rifleman. A 10-man section could deliver 200 to 250 rounds per minute. The effect was similar to machine gun fire, but more flexible and harder to suppress. The Battle of Mons in August 1914 demonstrated this dramatically. German soldiers attacking British positions reported facing heavy machine gun fire. British commanders reported their machine guns weren't engaged. The fire was from infantry with SMLE rifles. The Germans simply couldn't believe infantry could generate such firepower. Tandey's achievement on November 10th was the Mad Minute doctrine perfected. One rifleman firing at maximum sustainable rate, delivering devastating accurate fire. 14 confirmed kills in 45 minutes meant approximately 1 kill every 3 minutes. Given that he fired approximately 120 rounds, his hit rate was approximately 12%. This was consistent with combat accuracy standards for rapid fire at combat ranges. If you're enjoying this deep dive into why the SMLE was so effective and why Tandey's achievement was possible, hit that subscribe button right now. We're about to explore the technical details that made the SMLE special and why other armies couldn't replicate British rapid-fire doctrine. Don't miss what comes next. The technical superiority. What made the SMLE different? The SMLE's technical features, individually modest, combined to create exceptional combat effectiveness. Understanding these features explains why the rifle was so effective in skilled hands. The magazine held 10 rounds in a double-stack configuration. Loading was via 5-round chargers inserted from the top. The magazine could also be loaded with single rounds using the cutoff, allowing soldiers to top off the magazine during lulls. This flexibility was unique and tactically valuable. The bolt operated with a 60-degree throw, shorter than the 90-degree throw of Mauser-type actions. This seems like a minor difference, but the impact was significant. The shorter throw required less hand movement, allowing faster cycling. Over multiple shots, this added up to substantially higher rates of fire. The rear locking lugs, controversial among engineers, actually contributed to smooth operation. The bolt face seated directly against the cartridge case without the tight tolerances required by front locking lugs. This made the action more forgiving of dirt, moisture, and ammunition variations. In field conditions, this reliability was critical. The cock-on closing mechanism distributed the effort of cycling the bolt. Opening the bolt required relatively little force. Closing it required more force, but this coincided with the natural forward push motion. Soldiers found this easier to execute rapidly than cocking on opening systems. The sights were optimized for rapid target acquisition. The rear sight was a simple aperture, providing fast alignment. The front sight was a blade protected by sturdy ears. At typical combat ranges of 300 yards or less, sight alignment was quick and intuitive. The 303 British cartridge, while not as powerful as some contemporary rounds, was well suited to its role. It provided adequate penetration with manageable recoil. Soldiers could fire rapidly without fatigue from excessive recoil. The round's trajectory at combat ranges was flat enough for practical accuracy without complex elevation adjustments. The rifle's overall length of 44.5 inches made it handy in trenches. The shorter barrel, 25.2 inches, was easier to maneuver in confined spaces than the longer barrels of Mauser or Springfield rifles. In trench warfare, this mattered enormously. The rifle's weight, approximately 8.8 pounds loaded, was manageable for extended carry. It was light enough to not exhaust soldiers, but heavy enough to dampen recoil and provide stable aiming. The weight distribution was balanced, making the rifle point naturally. The two-piece stock design, with separate butt and forend, was structurally robust. Combat damage to one piece didn't necessarily compromise the entire stock. Field repairs were possible. Replacement parts were available. The design prioritized maintainability in field conditions. The bolt head was removable, allowing soldiers to clean the bolt face and firing pin without tools. This facilitated maintenance in field conditions where weapons became dirty. Regular cleaning maintained reliability even in the muddy conditions of Western Front trenches. Compare this to the German Mauser. The Mauser was arguably more robust, with its front locking lugs and stronger action. It was certainly more accurate at extreme ranges, but it held only 5 rounds. Its bolt throw was 90 degrees, slowing rate of fire. Its cock-on-opening mechanism made rapid cycling more fatiguing. The American Springfield M1903 was similar to the Mauser in most respects. 5-round magazine, 90-degree bolt throw, excellent accuracy, but slower rate of fire than the SMLE. In combat conditions that emphasized volume of fire over precision at extreme ranges, the SMLE's advantages were decisive. The mockery and the vindication American troops arriving in France in 1917 and 1918 often disparaged British equipment. This reflected American confidence in their own doctrine and equipment. The Springfield rifle was considered superior to the SMLE. American tactics emphasized marksmanship at range rather than rapid fire. When American soldiers saw the SMLE, many were unimpressed. The rifle looked old-fashioned compared to the Springfield. Its rear locking lugs seemed like inferior engineering. Its emphasis on rapid fire seemed outdated. Modern warfare required precision, not volume. The disparaging comments about mail-order rifles reflected this attitude. The SMLE looked like something ordered from a catalog, not like a proper military rifle designed to engineering specifications, not like the carefully crafted Springfield with its front-locking lugs and precise tolerances. British soldiers, veterans of years of combat, found these comments amusing. They'd seen what the SMLE could do. They knew its capabilities intimately. They understood that American doctrine, untested in the sustained combat of the Western Front, might not survive contact with reality. The vindication came quickly. American forces engaged in heavy combat discovered that volume of fire mattered more than they'd expected. The ability to deliver rapid fire at close to medium ranges proved tactically decisive. American after-action reports began noting that German attacks were stopped by sustained rifle fire, exactly as British doctrine predicted. Some American units tried to adopt rapid-fire techniques, but their Springfield rifles, while excellent weapons, weren't optimized for this. The 5-round magazine and 90-degree bolt throw limited achievable rates of fire. American soldiers could improve their rapidity, but couldn't match British mad-minute rates. By late 1918, American commanders were quietly acknowledging British rifle doctrine's effectiveness. Some recommended adopting elements of British training. Others suggested the next American rifle should incorporate features like the SMLE's 10-round magazine and short bolt throw. These acknowledgments came too late to change American equipment or training during the war, but they vindicated British design choices. The mail-order rifle had proven superior in the combat conditions that actually mattered. Tandey's achievement on November 10th represented the culmination of British rifle doctrine. One skilled soldier with a well-maintained SMLE, executing tactics developed through decades of experience, delivered fire that stopped an attack by forces 4 times larger. This wasn't luck. It was the predictable result of good design, proper training, and combat experience. November 11. The last hours. The armistice took effect at 11 a.m. on November 11, 1918. The shooting stopped. After 4 years and approximately 16 million deaths, the war ended. Henry Tandey survived. He'd fought in the war's final battle, delivered devastating fire that helped save his company, and lived to see peace. His actions on November 10th earned him the Victoria Cross, Britain's highest military decoration. The citation noted his conspicuous bravery and initiative in repelling enemy attacks during the final operations. But Tandey never glorified his achievement. When interviewed about the war, he spoke mainly of lost comrades and wasted lives. He'd survived when millions died. He'd killed enemy soldiers who were just men like him, serving their country. The Victoria Cross was an honor, but also a reminder of horror. His SMLE, the rifle that had saved his life and the lives of his comrades repeatedly, was eventually retired. Tandey kept it for a time, but eventually donated it to his regiment's museum. There it remains today, a worn rifle with a worn stock, representing the British Army's finest battle rifle and the doctrine that made it effective. Tandey's post-war life was quiet. He worked as a commissionaire, a security guard at peacetime military facilities. He married. He lived modestly. He avoided publicity. When reporters wanted to interview him about his Victoria Cross, he typically declined. In later years, a curious story emerged. Tandey supposedly encountered Adolf Hitler during the war and chose not to shoot him. This story, while intriguing, is likely apocryphal or at least embellished. What's certain is that Tandey represented the British Tommy at his finest. Brave, skilled, professional, modest. The SMLE's war record. Numbers don't lie. The SMLE's combat record speaks for itself. From 1914 to 1918, British infantry armed with SMLE rifles faced German forces that outnumbered them, had more artillery, and often had better tactical positions. Yet British infantry consistently held their ground, and often achieved local superiority of fire. The Battle of Mons in August 1914 saw 2 British divisions face 5 German divisions. German casualties were significantly higher despite their numerical superiority. German after-action reports attributed this to British machine gun fire. British units engaged had 2 machine guns per battalion. The fire was from SMLE rifles. The First Battle of Ypres in October and November 1914 saw outnumbered British forces stop German attacks repeatedly. German soldiers reported facing overwhelming firepower. British forces were actually outgunned in artillery and machine guns. The firepower came from infantry, with SMLE rifles executing mad, minute doctrine. Throughout the war, German intelligence consistently overestimated British machine gun strength. This wasn't poor intelligence. It was German soldiers honestly reporting the volume of fire they faced. They assumed machine guns because they couldn't believe infantry rifles could generate such firepower. British casualty rates, while horrific in absolute terms, were often lower than German rates in comparable engagements. This wasn't because British soldiers were better fighters or braver. It was because British infantry could deliver more firepower per soldier than German infantry, giving them advantages in defensive situations. The SMLE's design features, each individually modest, combined to create this superiority. The 10-round magazine, the smooth bolt action, the rapid-fire capability, the reliable feeding, the manageable recoil, the practical accuracy at combat ranges. Every feature contributed to making British infantry more lethal per man than their opponents. Post-war, many armies adopted features from the SMLE. The American M1 Garand, while semi-automatic rather than bolt action, incorporated an 8-round capacity, reflecting recognition that magazine capacity mattered. The Soviet Mosin Nagant was modified to improve its rate of fire. German rifle development between the wars emphasized faster bolt operation. These changes vindicated British design philosophy. The emphasis on rapid fire wasn't outdated thinking, it was ahead of its time. The SMLE's features, mocked by some as compromises or antiquated design, were actually optimized for real combat conditions. The legacy. What the mail-order rifle taught us. The SMLE's success offers lessons that transcend small arms design. These lessons apply to equipment design, military doctrine, and understanding how combat actually occurs versus how planners expect it to occur. First, specifications don't tell the whole story. The Mauser was stronger. The Springfield was more accurate at extreme ranges, but the SMLE was more effective in actual combat. Real-world effectiveness trumps theoretical superiority. Second, rate of fire matters more than precision at extreme ranges. Most combat occurs at close to medium range. Delivering more rounds on target at these ranges is more valuable than perfect accuracy at ranges where combat rarely occurs. Third, user-focused design produces better results than engineering-focused design. The SMLE was designed around what soldiers needed to do in combat. Other rifles were designed around what engineers thought proper rifle design required. The user-focused approach proved superior. Fourth, training and doctrine must match equipment capabilities. The SMLE's rapid-fire capability only mattered because British doctrine emphasized rapid fire, and soldiers were trained to exploit it. Equipment without appropriate doctrine and training wastes potential. Fifth, combat veterans know things planners don't. British soldiers who'd fought in colonial campaigns understood that volume of fire mattered. This experience shaped SMLE development. Planners without combat experience often optimize for the wrong characteristics. Sixth, simple and reliable beats complex and sophisticated. The SMLE's design was straightforward, few complex parts, easy to maintain, reliable in harsh conditions. Complex rifles, like some early automatic rifles, were less effective because complexity reduced reliability. Seventh, incremental improvement beats revolutionary redesign. The SMLE evolved from earlier Lee-Enfield designs. Each version incorporated lessons learned. Revolutionary new designs often fail because they lack this accumulated wisdom. Before we conclude this story, I want to ask one more time. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Understanding why Henry Tandey's mail-order SMLE was actually superior to supposedly better rifles teaches us important lessons about how real-world performance differs from specifications. Subscribe and join us for more stories that challenge conventional wisdom. The human element. Skill matters more than technology. Tandey's achievement on November 10, 1918, wasn't just about the rifle. It was about a skilled soldier using well-designed equipment to its maximum potential. This combination, skill plus appropriate equipment, is what creates battlefield effectiveness. An SMLE in untrained hands was just a rifle. It could be fired. It could hit targets. But it couldn't deliver the devastating rapid fire that Tandey achieved. That required thousands of hours of training, muscle memory developed through endless repetition, understanding of the weapon's characteristics at gut level. Tandey knew his rifle intimately. He knew how much pressure to apply to the trigger for clean break. He knew how to work the bolt smoothly without conscious thought. He knew how to estimate range by eye and adjust his sight picture accordingly. He knew the trajectory of .303 bullets at various ranges. All this knowledge was unconscious, automatic, allowing him to focus on target identification and engagement. This skill level was typical of British regular soldiers by 1918. 4 years of war had winnowed out those who couldn't master their weapons. Survivors were, by definition, those who'd become proficient. The British Army of late 1918 was a professional force of skilled veterans, even if most had started as civilians. Compare this to the German Army attacking Tandey's position. Many were young replacements with minimal training. Germany's experienced soldiers had been killed in 4 years of combat. The replacements received abbreviated training before being sent to the front. They could shoot, but they weren't masters of their weapons. This skill differential mattered enormously. Tandey's rifle wasn't magically superior to German Mausers, but Tandey's skill with his rifle vastly exceeded the typical German soldier's skill with theirs. In combat, this skill differential was more important than equipment differences. Modern militaries sometimes forget this lesson. They invest billions in advanced weapon systems while reducing training time and ammunition for practice. The result is sophisticated equipment in the hands of soldiers who can't use it to full potential. The SMLE's lesson is that adequate equipment in skilled hands beats superior equipment in average hands. Tandey's worn SMLE, maintained meticulously and mastered completely, was more effective than any other rifle in less skilled hands. Post-war. The SMLE continues. The SMLE remained the British Army's standard rifle until replaced by the Lee-Enfield No. 4 in 1941. Even then, many SMLE rifles remained in service throughout World War II. The rifle that had proved itself in World War I continued proving itself in World War II. British soldiers in World War II, armed with SMLE or No. 4 rifles, consistently demonstrated superior rifle fire compared to opponents. German after-action reports from World War II, like those from World War I, frequently mentioned the volume and accuracy of British rifle fire. The SMLE saw service in conflicts well beyond the world wars. British forces used them in Korea, Malaya, Kenya, Cyprus, and other post-war conflicts. Some British units carried SMLE rifles into the 1960s. Former British colonies and Commonwealth nations used them even longer. The Indian Army used SMLE rifles until the 1980s. The Canadian Rangers, a territorial force operating in Arctic regions, used SMLE rifles until they were finally replaced in 1990. The Afghan Mujahideen used SMLE rifles, many dating from World War I or earlier, during their war against the Soviet Union in the 1980s. This longevity wasn't because former users couldn't afford modern rifles. It was because the SMLE remained effective. Its rapid fire capability, reliable operation, and rugged construction made it useful long after it should have been obsolete by technical standards. Collectors and enthusiasts today recognize the SMLE as one of history's finest battle rifles. Well-maintained examples can still achieve impressive accuracy and rapid fire rates. The rifle's design, mocked by some as outdated or compromised, has proven remarkably durable and effective across more than a century. The final count? What 14 kills meant Henry Tandey's 14 confirmed kills on November 10, 1918, represented more than just effective shooting. They represented the culmination of British rifle doctrine, the vindication of design philosophy that prioritized rapid fire, and proof that skilled soldiers with appropriate weapons could achieve seemingly impossible results. 14 Germans killed or severely wounded in 45 minutes by one rifleman. This equates to approximately one casualty every 3 minutes. Sustaining this rate of effective fire required physical conditioning, mental discipline, weapon mastery, and tactical judgment. Tandey had to identify targets in poor light and combat confusion. He had to estimate range and adjust his aim appropriately. He had to control his breathing and trigger press while under stress. He had to work his bolt rapidly while maintaining sight picture. He had to reload smoothly under pressure. He had to do all of this while Germans were shooting back. The fact that he succeeded, that he maintained effective fire throughout the engagement, that he survived to see the Armistice, was testament to his skill, his training, and his weapon. The SMLE in his hands was exactly what the British Army had intended, a rapid-fire weapon that enabled skilled soldiers to deliver devastating firepower. The Germans who died that morning weren't killed by a mail-order rifle. They were killed by a weapon system, a combination of excellent design, proper doctrine, and skilled operator that proved superior to alternatives that looked better on paper. Conclusion: never mock the mail-order rifle. The American soldiers who mocked Henry Tandey's SMLE as a British mail-order rifle didn't understand what they were seeing. They saw an old-fashioned-looking rifle with worn finish and what they considered inferior engineering. They didn't see the refined design, the optimized features, the combat-proven effectiveness. Tandey didn't bother correcting them. He knew the truth. His SMLE had saved his life countless times. It had killed enemy soldiers efficiently. It had proven itself in conditions that destroyed lesser weapons. The mockery didn't matter. The results mattered. On November 10, 1918, Tandey demonstrated what the SMLE could do in skilled hands. 14 Germans killed, an attack broken, a position held, lives saved. The mail-order rifle had performed exactly as designed, exactly as British doctrine predicted, exactly as 4 years of combat had proven it would. The SMLE's story is a reminder that conventional wisdom isn't always wise. That equipment mocked by experts sometimes proves superior. That design features considered compromises sometimes turn out to be optimizations. That what looks old-fashioned might actually be refined beyond apparent obsolescence. The British Army's insistence on rapid-fire capability seemed outdated to many observers. Critics argued that modern warfare required precision at long range, not volume of fire at short range. The SMLE's design features, optimized for rapid fire, seemed like compromises that sacrificed proper engineering for obsolete tactical concepts. These critics were wrong. The combat conditions that actually occurred vindicated British doctrine completely. Infantry combat occurred primarily at close to medium ranges. Volume of accurate fire at these ranges was decisive. The SMLE's rapid fire capability proved more valuable than any alternative characteristic. Henry Tandey embodied this vindication, a working-class soldier who who enlisted for economic reasons, a man with no special advantages or privileged background, just training, discipline, and a weapon designed to enable exactly what he achieved. When he lay in that rifle pit on November 10th, watching Germans gather for their attack, he wasn't concerned about mockery from American soldiers. He wasn't worried about whether his rifle looked old-fashioned. He knew what his SMLE could do. He knew his own capabilities. He knew that the combination of trained soldier and well-designed weapon was about to demonstrate itself one final time. The Germans who attacked that morning expected to overrun British positions through numerical superiority. They outnumbered the defenders 4-1. They had surprise. They had good tactical positions. Victory should have been straightforward. They didn't account for Henry Tandey and his mail-order rifle, the rifle that could fire 30 aim shots per minute in skilled hands, the rifle with a 10-round magazine that allowed sustained fire, the rifle with smooth bolt action that enabled rapid cycling, the rifle that British soldiers had trusted and German soldiers had learned to fear. 14 dead Germans proved the mail-order rifle wasn't a joke. It was the finest battle rifle of its era, in the hands of a soldier who knew how to use it. The mockery died with those 14 Germans. What remained was respect, earned through blood and validated through survival. Private Henry Tandey, Victoria Cross recipient, most decorated British private soldier of World War I, proves that equipment doesn't have to look impressive to be effective. That old-fashioned doesn't mean obsolete. That mail order doesn't mean inferior. Sometimes the weapon others mock is the weapon that wins battles. The SMLE's worn stock and dinged finish hid a refined design that had evolved through decades of use. The rifle's features, each individually modest, combined to create exceptional combat effectiveness. British doctrine, emphasizing skills that leveraged these features, maximized the weapon's potential. Tandey's 14 kills weren't luck. They were the predictable result of proper design, appropriate doctrine, and skilled execution. The same result would have occurred with any skilled British soldier armed with an SMLE in similar circumstances. The weapon system worked exactly as designed. The mail-order rifle turned out to be exactly what British infantry needed, not the strongest action, not the most accurate at extreme range, not the most impressive looking, just the most effective at the mission that actually mattered. Delivering rapid, accurate fire at combat ranges, keeping British soldiers alive, killing enemy soldiers efficiently. That November morning, as dawn broke over Ville-sur-Haine, Henry Tandey and his SMLE wrote the final chapter of British rapid-fire doctrine's Vindication. They mocked his mail-order rifle, until he killed 14 Germans before dawn. Then the mockery stopped, and the respect began.